The sun was high over the alien marketplace, shining down on metal stalls, shouting vendors, and flying drones. The air smelled like spices and machine oil, mixed with the thick scent of sweat and burning fuel. Beasts pulled carts, traders yelled prices, and security bots floated above, watching for trouble. But no one looked at the small girl chained to the old fountain in the center of the plaza. Her skin was a pale gray, marked with old scars and patches of dried blood. Her hair was matted and thin, barely covering her bruised face. A heavy collar circled her neck, connected to a rusted chain that was bolted into the stone. She sat curled up, arms wrapped around her legs, eyes staring at nothing. To the busy crowd, she was invisible. Like garbage tossed out and forgotten, she was labeled a waste product by her creators and experimental alien hybrid that didn't meet the standards. Too weak, too emotional, too human-looking. She wasn't worth fixing, selling, or even recycling, so they chained her here, not even offering her the mercy of death. Now and then, people tossed scraps near her feet. Some threw rocks instead, laughing as she flinched and whimpered. Children were told not to go near her. That one's cursed, the elders warned. Her mind is broken, and yet she never spoke, never begged, never cried, until one day. A human walked into the market. His name was Ray, a repairman, traveler, and part-time scavenger. He was tall, with dusty clothes, a tool belt around his waist, and calm, sharp eyes that noticed everything. He wasn't looking for trouble, just a few replacement coils for his ship's cooling unit. But when he passed the old fountain, he stopped. His eyes narrowed, his steps slowed. Something tugged at his heart, a strange feeling, deep and sharp. He saw her, the girl no one looked at, and for a moment she looked back. Their eyes met. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. It looked like one word: help. Ray blinked, confused. He looked around. No one else had noticed or cared. The merchant at the nearest stall glanced at him and smirked. Ignore her, traveler. That one's a failed batch, left here for cleaning bots to take care of, eventually. Ray didn't answer. He took a step closer to the fountain. The girl tensed, as if expecting a blow. Her arms shook, trying to make herself smaller. Ray crouched beside her, careful not to move too fast. "What's your name?" he asked softly. She said nothing, just stared at his hands, as if waiting for pain. The merchant walked over, annoyed. "Don't waste time, human. That thing is nothing. Not even legal property. She's classified as discarded biomatter. You touch her, you take her problems." Ray looked at him. "You mean she's not owned by anyone?" The merchant scoffed. "Owned? Please, even slavers won't take her. Tried to auction her once. She collapsed after 1 hour of standing. Useless trash." Ray stood up, his jaw tight. He pulled out a credit chip. "Then I'll take her. She's no one's, right?" People around stopped to look. A few laughed. Others just shook their heads. Humans gone mad. Someone muttered. The merchant backed up. "You serious? You'll buy that," he said with a grin. "Fine. 1 chip and she's yours. But don't come crying when she dies in a day." Ray tossed the chip without a word and stepped toward the girl again. But before he could reach her, 2 guards stepped between them. Alien soldiers hired to protect market property. No touching the asset until transaction is logged and scanned. One barked. Ray showed his ID, waiting as the scanner beeped. Finally, a green light blinked. Transfer complete. He moved to unlock the chain. But the girl jerked back, trembling hard. "It's okay," he said gently. "I'm not going to hurt you." Her lips moved again, barely a whisper. "Why?" Ray looked into her frightened eyes. "Because you shouldn't be chained." The crowd had already lost interest, going back to business. But in the shadows, something else was watching. A small drone hovered silently, recording, sending data to an unknown ship far above the city sky. Ray didn't see it. He knelt beside the girl. Finally undoing the chain, her body collapsed into his arms like a featherlight. Fragile, almost too weak to carry. He held her close, whispering, "You're free now," but in the silence of the moment. A red dot from a sniper beam slid across Ray's chest, and somewhere, a voice said coldly, "Target acquired." The guards stepped forward, their weapons raised, but Ray did not flinch. He held the girl gently in his arms, her small body trembling against his chest. She was barely conscious, her skin cold like ice, her breath shallow. Ray looked at the merchant who had sold her, his voice steady. "This girl needs help now." The merchant shrugged, turning away. "Not my concern anymore, human. You paid for her, she is yours now. Take her and go, before you attract more attention." Ray's eyes swept the market. No one was watching anymore, but something in the air had changed. It felt heavier, like danger was crawling under the surface. He turned and walked quickly toward the outer streets, but the guards followed. "You cannot leave yet," one of them said. "She is not approved for release. She is tagged with experimental clearance only. A certified lab can remove her chip. Without that, she is still property of the Bioengineering Guild." Ray stopped and turned around slowly. He knew how these systems worked. They wanted more money. They wanted leverage. "How much?" he asked quietly. The guards looked at each other. 10,000 credits. Ray's jaw tightened. "That is robbery." She was discarded and declared waste. "You already got your payment. You want another 10,000? The lead guard smirked. "Then leave her. No one will stop you. She will not even last the night." Ray looked down at the girl. Her eyes were open now, barely. She was staring up at him, confused, like she could not believe he was still. Holding her still, fighting for her, he made a decision. "I will trade something else," he said. The guards raised their brows. Like what Ray reached into his coat, he pulled out a glowing cube. It hummed with power. Old tech, rare, illegal in some systems. He held it up for them to see. "This is a phase core from a pre-collapsed ship." Untouched, still charged. The guard's eyes widened. Even the merchant turned around. That could power a city dome for a week. Or sell for 20 times their asking price. The guard stepped forward slowly. Ray did not move. "Only one of you comes. No weapons, no tricks. You take the core, I take the girl. This ends clean." After a tense silence, one of the guards stepped forward, took the core with careful hands, scanned it. It lit up bright blue. "Deal, she is yours. Get out before someone else changes their mind." Ray didn't wait. He wrapped the girl in his cloak and disappeared into the side alleys. Moving fast, he could feel the weight of eyes watching him from the rooftops. Not the normal kind, the trained kind, bounty eyes hunters. In a narrow corridor between two buildings, he stopped, laid her down gently, checked her pulse. She was still alive, but just barely. He opened a med pack. Applied a stim patch to her neck. Her body jerked, then stilled. She gasped once, then opened her eyes fully. She looked around, confused. Her voice cracked. "Where am I?" He smiled softly. "Somewhere safer than before." She tried to sit up, but failed. He helped her, gave her water. She drank like someone who had never tasted clean liquid before. "Why did you take me?" she asked. Her voice was soft, like it had forgotten how to speak. Ray looked at her, because no one else did. She stared at him, then looked away. "They called me broken, not worth life." "You are not broken," he said. "You were thrown away by monsters, but that does not mean you are less." She looked at him again. Something flickered in her eyes, a spark, small but real. "What is your name?" she asked Ray. "And yours?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Vexa." He nodded. "Well, Vexa, we are going to get you out of here, but first we need to hide." As they moved deeper into the shadows above them on a rooftop, a figure in black armor watched through a scope, his voice calm as he spoke into a hidden "Come target is," with unknown human phase core, was exchanged. "Initiate pursuit, do not engage, observe only." The figure vanished into the smoke as Ray and Vexa disappeared into the night. The tunnels were dark and narrow with leaking pipes and wet floors. Ray carried Vexa through the passage, her arms hanging weakly around his shoulders. Every step echoed in the silence. He moved fast, keeping low, always listening. He knew these tunnels well. He had hidden in them before. But this time felt different. He was not hiding for himself. Vexa opened her eyes slowly. Her voice was weak. "Where are we safe for now?" he said. "But not for long, they will come." She blinked, confused. "Come, for what for me?" Ray stopped and looked at her. "They will not get you, not again." He set her down gently against a wall. She tried to move, but her legs trembled like soft metal, ready to collapse. He watched her try again. One step, then she fell. She looked at him, surprised, almost like she had never tried walking before. Ray helped her up. "When was the last time you stood?" She shook her head. "I do not know. I was chained a long time ago. I forgot what it feels like." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "You will remember, we have time," but in his mind, he knew that was not true. Time was running out. Back in the city, guards were already scanning tunnels. Surveillance drones had picked up traces the hunt had begun. Ray and Vexa kept moving. She leaned on him. With each step her breathing was slow, but steady now. She was trying, that meant something. As they reached an old maintenance room, Ray stopped. He tapped a code on the panel, and the rusted door creaked open. Inside were supplies, old blankets, tools, and a med unit. He helped Vexa lie down, then scanned her again. Her vitals were still low, muscles underdeveloped, joints damaged, but her brain activity was high, too high for someone meant to be discarded. He knew what this meant. She had not failed their test. She had passed it to well. Ray stared at the results in silence, then heard her voice. "You look afraid, not afraid. Angry at me, no?" At them, Vexa closed her eyes. She remembered flashes of lights, wires, voices that never showed faces. She remembered pain. Not just in her body, but in her thoughts, like someone tried to erase her mind, but failed. "They said I think too much, that I ask questions. They wanted me to be quiet forever." Ray sat beside her. "They failed. You are still here." She turned to him. "Why do you help me? You do not know me. You do not gain anything." He paused, then said, "Because I was like you, once alone, thrown away. Someone help me now. It is my turn." Vexa stared at him. Her eyes were wet, but no tears fell. She had forgotten how to cry. Suddenly, a sound echoed through the tunnel. A soft mechanical hum. Ray jumped to his feet and looked through a small screen linked to the outer camera. Two drones floated near the entrance, scanning. They were close. Ray turned to Vexa. "We need to move now. I cannot run. You do not need to. I will carry you." "No, I want to try." She pushed herself up, legs shaking, arms stretched toward the wall. She stood one step, then two. She stumbled. Ray caught her. She smiled weakly. "See, I can move." He nodded. And together, they left the room carefully, quietly, step by step. In the shadows behind them, another figure watched from a hidden screen, an older alien with sharp eyes and scars across his face. He leaned back in his chair and whispered, "She survived." Unbelievable. A voice on the speaker replied, "Do we intercept now?" "Not yet. Let the human fix her. Then she will lead us to what we lost." The screen blinked off. Far below in the tunnels, Ray and Vexa reached a steel hatch. He opened it and helped her through. Above them, a new sky waited, dark, cold, filled with stars. But for Vexa, it was the first time she saw the sky without chains around her neck. The cabin was hidden in the hills, made of scrap metal, stone, and old solar panels. Ray had built it years ago as a backup shelter for emergencies. Now it was Vexa's only hope. He laid her down on a clean surface and activated the med unit. Soft lights scanned her body from head to toe. Ray watched the screen as numbers and diagrams appeared. Everything confirmed what he feared. Vexa was not just weak. She was designed to fail. Her spine had missing supports. Her bones were made from cheaper, unstable compounds. Her nerves had been underfed by design, but her brain was perfect. No damage, no faults, no slow activity. It ran faster than any average unit. She was built with purpose, and then rejected when she showed signs of independent thought. Vexa lay still. But her eyes were open. She was watching him. "You are angry," she said, in a low voice. Ray nodded. "I am. They made you to suffer, and they called it failure." She looked at the ceiling. "Do you think I was meant to be someone else?" "No. I think you are someone they could not control." Vexa closed her eyes and listened to the sound of the wind outside. For the first time, the wind was not filled with voices commanding her. She felt something strange. A quiet ray placed a warm patch on her chest. She flinched, but did not pull away. He said, "This will help you breathe. Your lungs were starting to collapse, but they will recover." "Why do you care?" she asked. Again her voice was stronger now. "Because I was left behind once too," he said. "And someone chose to care about me when no one else did." She turned her head to him. "Did you escape like I did?" "No, I broke out, but not alone. My sister pulled me out of the labs. She died for it." Vexa's lips parted, but no sound came. She wanted to ask more, but her throat tightened. Her voice did not come out. Ray stood up and walked to the storage unit. He pulled out a small device and set it on the table. It showed a map of the sector and blinking dots. Some were green, some red. All of them were signals from tracking units used by bounty hunters. "They are close," he said, "but they are not here yet. They think you are still dying. That buys us time." He pulled out a second device, a memory reader, and held it near her temple. "This will show us what they put in your head." "Only if you are ready." Vexa nodded slowly. "Do it." The device activated and Ray saw Flash's memories encoded in layers of pain and obedience. He saw rooms without doors, white lights, and cold hands. He heard the voices saying the same command over and over. "Obey, submit, forget, obey, submit, forget." Then he saw something different. One memory was out of sync. Vexa, standing in the dark, talking to another girl. "You do not have to listen," the girl had said. "You can think, you can feel, you can be more." "Who was she?" Ray asked softly. Vexa answered, "I do not know. She was taken away after that night. I never saw her again." Ray stepped back. "They feared her, and they feared you, because you survived her words." Vexa looked down at her hands. "They are small and weak. But they still moved when I needed them to." Ray gave a small nod. "That is called will, and yours was never broken." Suddenly, an alert flashed on the screen. An inbound ship had entered the zone. No ID, no beacon, just silent approach. Ray's voice became sharp. "They found us. We need to move." Now Vexa tried to stand. Her legs shook, but did not collapse. She looked at him with fire in her eyes. "I will not be chained again." Ray smiled. "Then let us show them who you are." As they packed quickly, a light outside grew brighter. The sky above the hill burned red, but in the shadows of the cabin, a girl who was never supposed to live stood tall for the first time. The vehicle shook as it moved across the rough landscape. Ray drove with focused eyes, scanning the sky for shadows. Vexa sat beside him, her body still healing, but stronger than before. She held on to the edge of her seat as wind blew through the broken window. "Where are we going?" she asked quietly. "Somewhere they never expected you to return to." Ray said, "Somewhere that should have been destroyed years ago." They drove 4 hours past broken hills and silent plains. Old ruins and craters lined the path. Vexa watched them in silence, her thoughts racing. She remembered none of this, but a strange chill ran through her bones as they got closer. Finally, they reached a canyon where an old structure stood hidden beneath layers of ash and dust. The gates were rusted, the walls cracked, but the symbol was still there, the emblem of the Bioengineering Guild. A circle with a line through it. Vexa stepped out slowly. "This place feels wrong," she said. Ray nodded. "It should. This is where they made you." They walked through the entrance. No alarms, no lights, only silence and old shadows. Ray used his torch to light the path. The halls were wide, cold, and metallic. As they moved deeper, Vexa began to feel something in her chest, a pull, not fear, not memory, something older. They reached a large room with broken tanks and shattered glass. Inside were pods, dozens of them, some empty, some still filled with liquid. Each pod had a name, or rather, a number. Vexa moved closer to one and wiped the glass with her hand. Inside was a small girl, eyes closed, skin gray like hers. Her voice cracked. "She looks like me." Ray stood beside her. "They made hundreds like you. Most of them did not survive. You were not the only one, but you are the only one who escaped." Vexa stepped back, her legs weak. Her eyes filled with something she did not understand. "Was I supposed to die too?" "Yes, but you did not." She turned and looked at the others. Some had no names, only barcodes. Some had marks on their skin. Burns cuts notes, written in ink. One had the word failure scratched into the glass. Vexa felt something rising in her chest. She did not know if it was rage or grief, maybe both. "They called me a waste product," she said, "but they wasted all of them." Ray looked around the room, his face hard. "I thought I destroyed this place, but someone rebuilt it. They wanted to hide the evidence. And now we found it again." He walked to a control panel and pressed a few buttons. A screen flickered on, showing old data logs, dates, experiments, notes, and then live activity logs. "Someone had been here recently." Ray's voice lowered. "We are not alone." Suddenly, the lights flickered. A soft mechanical hum filled the room. Vexa turned. One of the pods began to glow, then another, and another. A voice spoke from the wall, monotone and cold. "Subject." Vexa detected reactivation sequence initiated. Ray shouted back, "Shut it down, emergency override." Denied. The voice replied. "Security mode enabled." Doors slammed shut around them, locking them in. Turrets emerged from the ceiling but did not fire. Vexa stood in the center of the room, her heart pounding. "Why are you doing this?" she shouted. "You are the anomaly," the voice said. "You resisted compliance. You will now be studied again." Ray pulled her behind a pillar. "We have to disable the AI. It is running on emergency backup. There must be a core room nearby." Vexa looked at the pods. At the girls still trapped in frozen silence. "We cannot leave them," she said. "We will not," Ray answered, "but first we take down the system." Together they ran through the hallway, avoiding the scans. The lights chased them. The voice followed. "Obey. Return. Submit." But Vexa kept running. And with every step, the voice lost strength, like her will was breaking its hold. At the end of the hall, they found the core room. A glowing sphere pulsing with energy. Ray pulled out a detonator. "We take this out, everything shuts down." Vexa looked at the control panel. Her hand hovered over the release switch. She whispered, "No more forgotten girls," and pressed it. The core hissed as it opened, lights spilling into the room like fire. Ray shielded his eyes. While Vexa stepped forward, slowly drawn by the energy, the core pulsed in rhythm like a heartbeat, mechanical and alive. She could feel it, not just see it. In her ears, in her chest, like it was speaking without words. Ray moved to place the detonator, but Vexa held out her hand. "Wait," she said. "There is something here. Something still running." He paused, watching her carefully. "What do you hear? Not hear, feel. It is inside me." Vexa reached toward the core, and as her hand touched the surface, a shock ran through her body. She gasped, falling to her knees, eyes wide with light. Ray grabbed her shoulders, but she did not scream. She whispered words he could not understand, old codes, hidden triggers, buried commands that had been locked inside her mind since the day she was made. A voice came from the core, familiar and cold. "You cannot escape what you were built for." Vexa gritted her teeth and stood, her voice louder. "Now I was not built to obey." The lights above flickered again, and the voice stuttered, "You are a failed unit. You cannot override base protocol." "I already did," she said. "You tried to erase me, but I remember." Her memories flooded back like waves, not just pain, but faces, voices, other girls like her. Sisters who had spoken in whispers during testing, one who had told her to run, one who had been taken screaming. She remembered them all now. Ray watched as Vex's body glowed with faint energy. The core was syncing with her, but not controlling her. It was listening. She turned to Ray. "It is not a machine. It is a memory vault, and I am the key." She stepped into the circle around the core, and the room went silent. Files opened across the wall, holograms of test logs. Abuse sales orders, all stamped and approved by the guild. Ray stepped forward, eyes scanning the data. "This is enough to bring the whole program down." Vexa looked at the files, her voice soft. "I was never alone. They erased them, but they left pieces behind." In me suddenly, the core darkened, and the voice returned. "System breach detected. Initiating purge." Panels on the walls opened as drones spilled out. Worry and armed Ray pulled out his weapon and fired, hitting the first wave. But there were too many. Vexa stepped forward again and screamed, not a scream of fear, but of will. The sound echoed through the chamber, breaking the sensors, confusing the drones. They twitched and crashed into each other, unable to target. She held her head, eyes glowing brighter than before. You do not control me, you never did. Ray reached the core and placed the detonator. We shut this down now. Are you ready? Vexa nodded. Do it, but save the data. He copied everything to a storage chip, then activated the countdown. They ran as the walls trembled behind them, the entire factory groaning with energy. Lost doors burst open as they reached the surface. The sky turning red with warning sirens, a shuttle waited near the edge where Ray had parked it hours ago. They boarded as fire burst from the ground behind them, smoke rising into the air. The grave of silence finally broken. As the shuttle lifted into the air, she whispered voices, all of them. They were waiting for someone to remember. Ray looked at her, his voice steady. You remembered you gave them back their voice? She held the storage chip tightly against her chest. I will show the galaxy what they did. Ray nodded, and I will stand beside you when you do. Shuttle disappeared into the clouds, leaving only smoke and ash behind. But in Vexa's heart, there was no more fear. Only fire. Grand Hall of the Galactic Union was built to hold thousands. Alien leaders sat in high seats, their faces proud, and cold lights from 100 planets lit the chamber. Cameras floated above the floor, streaming the summit across the stars. No one noticed the girl who walked in at first. She wore no armor, no crown, no rank. Only a simple robe and a fire in her eyes. Ray walked beside her, his face calm but alert. He carried the storage chip like a weapon of truth. They had arrived without invitation, but they were no longer asking for permission. A guard stepped forward to stop them. Ray showed a signal badge taken from a fallen contact. The guard hesitated, then stepped aside. As they entered the center platform, whispers began to spread. Some recognized the human from old bounty records, fewer recognized the girl. Until her voice echoed across the chamber, my name is Vexa. I was made in secret by your approved scientists. They called me a waste product. They chained me like an animal, but I lived, and I remember everything. A wave of silence rolled through the crowd. There the head speaker spoke. You have no standing in this court. Leave or be removed. Vexa stepped closer, her voice louder. I have their names. Their logs recorded as they tortured and erased hundreds of children like me. They said no one would ever care. But I broke free, and I am not alone. Ray activated the holoprojector. Images filled the chamber. Pod rooms coded reports. Live video of experiments. Test subjects labeled by numbers, not names. Gasps filled the air. Some leaders stood in shock, others shouted for silence. The head speaker slammed the platform. This evidence cannot be confirmed. This meeting is not the place for accusations. Ray stepped forward. It is the only place because you signed the approvals, you took their money. You funded the labs that made her. Suddenly, a small voice rose from the crowd, a child alien. She stood, holding her mother's hand, and pointed at Vexa. She looked like me. The crowd turned, others began to murmur. Some stood in support. A diplomat whispered. My niece disappeared in a lab like that. The speaker tried to control the room. Order must be maintained. This is a court, not a riot. But Vexa was already walking forward, not to threaten, to speak. You left us behind, you said. We were broken, but we are alive. We feel, we dream, and now we speak. A wave of quiet swept the hall again. Not from control, from respect. Vexa took out the chip and placed it on the main console. If you deny this, I will release it to the systems beyond your borders. Let the outer planets see what your silence protects. The speaker sat back, eyes narrowed. You would challenge the peace. This is not peace, Vexa said. This is control. A long pause followed. Then a voice from the far seat stood, an old leader from a neutral system. Let the girl be heard. Let the truth be shown. We owe that much to those we never saw. One by one, others agreed. The tide had turned. Within hours, a full investigation was launched. The guild's records were unsealed. Factories were shut down. Arrests began on planets that once claimed innocence. Vexa watched from a quiet balcony as the flags were lowered. She said nothing, just breathed. Ray stood beside her. You did it. She shook her head. No. We did it, and we are not done. He smiled. What now? She looked at the stars. We find the rest. The ones still in chains. The ones who think they are alone. Ray nodded. Then let us begin. Far above the city, a new signal lit up a beacon, not of distress, but of hope. And across the galaxy, others like Vexa began to rise.